The gods were losing, not slowly, not with dignity. They were being hunted, dragged from their thrones, scattered across the sky like broken stars. Indra, Lord of Lightning, the king of heaven himself, had fled his own palace with nothing but the clothes on his back. The celestial army lay in ruins. Prayers rose from the earth unanswered, and above all of it, growing fat on the silence where divinity used to live, sat a demon named Tarakasura. He hadn't cheated to win. That was the worst part. He had earned this. Tarakasura was not born powerful. He became powerful the hardest way a demon can, through absolute, agonizing devotion. For years beyond counting, he stood motionless in meditation, starving his body, burning under the sun, standing in rivers of ice, refusing to break. He was performing tapas, the sacred austerity that, in the Hindu cosmos, generates so much spiritual heat that even the gods are forced to take notice. The universe has rules, and one of them is this: sincerity of devotion must be rewarded, regardless of who is doing the devoting. Brahma appeared before him, reluctant but bound. "Ask," the Creator said, "and it shall be given." Tarakasura smiled. He had thought carefully about this moment. He knew that the greatest warriors have the shortest lives, that brute strength always finds a stronger fist. So he asked not for power. He asked for a loophole. He asked that only one being in all of existence could ever defeat him, the son of Shiva. It was, as plans go, nearly perfect, because Shiva had no son. Shiva's beloved, Sati, had died, burned herself in sacred fire at her father's insult to her husband's name. And Shiva, shattered by grief, had sealed himself away from the world in meditation so deep that mountains grew silent around him. He was not going to marry again. He was not going to father a child. He was not going to open his eyes. Tarakasura had chosen his weakness with the precision of a surgeon, and so the demon took Swarga, the kingdom of heaven, and no one could stop him. The gods sat in desperate council. They had tried everything: weapons, alliances, strategy, brute force. Tarakasura had crushed it all. There was only one solution, and it was a problem that felt impossible. Someone had to make Shiva fall in love again. They turned to Parvati. She was already there. Parvati was not Sati reborn by accident. She was the great goddess Adi Shakti, the primordial feminine energy, the force that underlies all existence, who had chosen to walk the earth again as the daughter of the mountain king Himavan, for exactly this purpose. She already knew what the gods were too afraid to ask, and she had already begun. She went to Shiva's mountain. She brought flowers. She swept the path around his stillness. She sat near him and matched his silence, day after day, refusing to leave. But Shiva's eyes did not open. The gods, impatient, made a mistake. They sent Kama, the god of love, divine archer, whose flower-tipped arrows could crack open even the most sealed heart, to fire at Shiva from behind a tree. The arrow found its mark. Shiva's eyes opened, and then his third eye opened. A bolt of cosmic fire erupted from between Shiva's brows and reduced Kama to ash so completely that not even memory of his form remained. The god of love was gone in a single breath. His wife, Rati's scream, echoed across every realm. Shiva shut his eyes again. But here is the thing about Parvati that the gods had underestimated. She was not waiting for Shiva to love her. She was waiting to be worthy of him. After the disaster with Kama, she did not retreat. She removed her jewels and her fine clothes, let her hair grow loose, and went into the forest to perform her own austerities, standing in fire in summer, sitting in snow in winter, eating nothing but fallen leaves, then nothing at all. The mountain shook with the heat she generated. Now it was Shiva's eyes that opened on their own. He came to her disguised as a wandering ascetic, tested her, argued with her, even mocked the god she was waiting for. And Parvati defended Shiva's honor, to a stranger with such fire that the disguise fell apart. Shiva stood before her, revealed, and he knelt. They were married in a ceremony that the cosmos itself attended. Celestial musicians played, flowers fell from cloudless skies, and even grief paused to watch. But the child they needed could not be born easily. Shiva's power had been contained for an age. The energy he carried was not ordinary. It was the concentrated force of the universe's own destruction and regeneration, compressed into a single divine seed. When it was finally released, it burned so intensely that even Agni, the god of fire who carried it as a favor, cried out in pain. The Ganges herself, the purest river in all creation, was asked to receive it. From the water, wrapped in reeds, 6 glowing sparks emerged. 6 children, 6 perfect blazing babies, each one humming with a fraction of Shiva's infinite power. The 6 Krittikas, celestial star mothers, the Pleiades made flesh, found them. Each took one child to her breast. Each began to nurse one face of the divine. And then Parvati arrived. She looked at her 6 sons and felt something no philosophy could contain. With a cry of longing, she pulled all 6 children toward her at once. And where there had been 6, there was now one child, 6 faces, 12 arms, eyes that held the light of 6 stars. He opened 6 mouths and laughed. They named him Skanda. He was days old when the gods crowned him commander of their army. Let that sit for a moment. The celestial forces, ancient warriors, gods of wind and fire and thunder, all knelt before an infant because something in his presence made the choice obvious. This was not just power. This was purpose, wearing a body. This was the universe correcting itself, catching the arrow it had launched at its own heart. When Skanda rode out on his peacock, a bird he had subdued himself, taming its vanity and pressing it into divine service, the armies of heaven moved with him. His vel, the sacred spear given to him by Parvati, was not merely a weapon. It was her Shakti made physical, the goddess's own power, condensed into a point of absolute truth. Tarakasura saw the child coming and laughed. He had laughed before at armies. He had laughed at gods and heroes. But this laugh was different. It had a tremor in it, because even a demon who had outsmarted the cosmos could feel when the game had already ended. Skanda drove the vel through Tarakasura's chest. The demon fell, heaven exhaled, and across the 3 worlds, every being that had bent under the weight of that tyranny stood up straight for the first time in ages. Here is what this story is actually about. Tarakasura's boon was not stupidity, it was logic. He believed that grief was permanent, that a broken god stays broken, that the wound in Shiva's heart was a wall no one could climb. He was wrong. Parvati didn't storm the wall. She sat beside it. She matched the silence. She became worthy before she became a wife. And in doing so, she didn't just win Shiva's love. She brought the force of divine creation back into a universe that had started to give up. Skanda is not simply the son of a god and a goddess. He is what becomes possible when devotion meets patience, when grief is not denied but transformed, when the universe refuses to surrender even when every strategy has failed. He is born from fire, carried by water, raised by stars, made whole by love. He is 6-faced because wisdom looks in every direction at once, and he arrives, always, exactly when the darkness has convinced itself that it has already won.